So, here's a half funny case or half funny story. I don't really know. To me, it was just dumb, and to me, it was just a confirmation of the lack of quality of proper journalism that is rampant in most newspapers today, and also really just a totally unnecessary story that doesn't add a single thing to your life, really. Well, I guess in some respects it actually does, because the story was about somebody, some journalist whose zipper on her pants broke. By the way, I'm gonna give you the full story, and then we can talk later about the journalism, because there is something interesting about persuasion to this whole thing. So, basically, a woman buys a new pair of pants. After a short while, I'm assuming a couple of months or so, the zipper broke, which is of course totally uncalled for. When you're buying yourself a new pair of pants, you want them to last for years, right? So if the zipper breaks, then obviously something is wrong with the pants, right? They're of poor and inferior quality. So this woman called the store and they said that we apologize, but we don't have any departments for reparations or for for fixing stuff, which is completely bonkers, really. Because according to the law, you actually, at the very least, the law in my jurisdiction, if you sell something, that's a that's a product, you actually by law are required to sell something that will last. So I think I don't know how many hours she spent on the phone, but she said that she wrote in the piece that she called at the very least 16 or 17 times to the same store, and she spent hours researching the law, going back and forth with the store and so on, until finally the store admitted to having sold her an inferior piece of garment and had to pay for a tailor to repair the zipper of her pants, which is fine. However, here's something that's very, very interesting. This woman self-described herself as a Karen. The article in question, I'm going to look up the article, really. I'm going to look up the article and see what it says. It was something along the lines of, when our journalist turned into a Karen. Let me see if I can find it here. This is annoying. This is how, here it is. I became the store's worst nightmare, a Karen, in air quotes. This is a woman who's writing this herself, how she became a Karen. And just think about it. Karen is exclusively used as a negative word against your typical hag, an annoying woman who's oftentimes fat, has got blue hair, probably on the left wing spectrum of politics, has a large mouth, can't stop piling on, complaining, bitching, moaning, etc., and it's just an overall annoyance. And of course it's used, of course most women find that slur, because that's really what it is, offensive, right? But this woman actually uses it herself and self-describes herself as a Karen. Just think about it, what that does to your persuasion-wise. This word that was introduced by somebody, probably a man, I don't know, now he's getting routinely picked up by women, even though they don't like it. It's kind of like the same thing as everybody who protests against Trump. They're using "make blank great again" against Trump, which just emphasizes how Trump in the first place persuaded them to use his own slogan. I mean, what does it tell you when you're using somebody else's slogan against them? You've already lost in the first place. So this woman has lost in the first place when she's using the expression Karen to diagnose herself and her own behavior. I'm sure she was an annoyance on the phone. And so this just reflects my point here, is that persuasion doesn't need to be delivered in a nice manner. It doesn't need to be charming. It doesn't need to be convincing. Well, it needs to be convincing, of course, but it doesn't need to be charming, and it surely doesn't need to be nice. It can be very, very rude. Again, just think about everybody and their mother who protests and oppose Trump, but yet they use "make blank great again" as a means of getting back at him. Well, they're so weak-minded they can't even find out their own expressions. So they're just acknowledging the power and the persuasion that Trump really has. Think about it. And this woman is the exact same thing. She's acknowledging the so-called sexism and male chauvinism and whatever there is, which just gives you some idea what persuasion really is. So with that being said, if you want to learn more about persuasion, then get subscribed to my email list. The link to do so is in the episode description wherever you're watching it and or are listening to this, and I'll see you there.